You set foot on foreign soil. Only this land isn't ruled by any country or government. In this land we celebrate music. In this land we celebrate games. In this land we celebrate those who compose video game music. Welcome to the VG Embassy. Welcome and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the VG Embassy. This is a show centered around video game music and the amazing online community of fans and podcasters that enjoy it. My name's Ed, and on each episode I'll take the role of Prime VGM Minister and invite a guest VG Ambassador onto the show to share with us their own video game music culture. Or I may share a part of my own culture on a solo show. Today we are talking about games with bizarre and wacky names, and this was originally going to be a solo show. I just had an idea for it one morning, and I was like, I'm going to go out into the community online and ask people what games they know of that have bizarre names, and I'm going to pull music from them, and I'm going to put a show together. And I got an awesome response from a whole bunch of people, and as I was putting the show together, I'm like, you know what? It's going to be kind of boring if I'm just making fun of these game names by myself. So I need somebody with me to laugh about this stuff with. And who better than my buddy Justin from XVGM Radio. He has been on Pixel Tunes Radio twice, but we've never actually done a show together. And he lives right around the corner from me. So I was like, let's hook up and let's do a show. And Justin, thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with me today.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me here.
This is going to be a fun little show. So you are now Mike's co-host on XVGM Radio after the PTR split. It ended up being, the VG Embassy and XVGM. So how did that whole thing come about with you and Mike doing XVGM?
So it actually came about with the two shows that I subbed in for when you were on a leave of absence. I guess
my burnout phase, yeah.
Yeah. I came in for the Wario episode and the SNES Deep Cuts episode. And then after, even you and I talking, you were like, I can't believe we haven't had you on an episode yet.
Yeah.
And then as things sort of progressed and, you were getting the XVG Embassy. That's a different thing. The VG Embassy.
That's like the mutated version of both shows.
Yeah, well, I've actually been talking to Mike. I feel like we should do a combo thing at some point and just call it the XVG
That would be awesome. I'd be down for that.
But so when you were getting the VG Embassy together, Mike was looking to he didn't want to just take PTR and throw somebody else in. He figured if something different was going to be done, then we should call it something different. So he thought that I did a pretty good job on the two episodes that I subbed in for.
Yeah, those were fun.
Yeah. And then we just sort of took it from there. It's been a lot of fun. We've been going since, June, I think? Our first episode came out in June. Mm-hmm. We started recording a little bit before that. And every episode has been wild. We actually have one episode that we did that we ended up recording twice because we came in, we recorded, and then we got interrupted. We basically had to stop recording, and then when we came back, we were both just like, that wasn't that great, so let's start over. And we're gonna put that together for a special Patreon thing.
Cool.
Here's what happens when you don't prepare.
Awesome. Yeah, Mike and I did that once with, we did Elemental Master.
Oh, yeah.
And we screwed up the recording somehow. We tried doing it with two mics using the software program. And what ended up happening was the mics got desynced. So there was an echo on his voice, and it sounded like he was in a cavern somewhere. So we had to scrap the entire show and then redo the entire. And fortunately, the redo ended up being good, but yeah. I know what that's like having podcast problems. So let's talk a little bit about what we're doing today. So as I said before, I basically went on Discord and the VG Embassy Facebook group and asked just basically threw a question out into the ether. List me some games that have really bizarre names, very interesting names, stuff that made you want to check the game out and see what it was all about. And so I got contributions from The Dyad, Alex Messenger, Cam Worma, Kung Fu Carlito, Robin Purnell from Rhythm and Pixels chimed in, Aaron Hickman, these are all people who've been on my show before, Michael Bridgewater, Chris Murray, Dan Basiglia, Utopia Nemo, and even Mike Levy.
Yeah.
Put in some suggestions. So I took a lot of those suggestions. I tried to look for music in those games that was good. I didn't want to focus on the names so much. I wanted to make sure that there was really good music in these games that have these weird names. And so I took some suggestions from you guys. I took some games that I had been thinking of when I came up with the concept, and put together a list of 10 really cool tracks that we're going to listen to today. So we're going to start off with one of the wackiest ones first. This track is called Mawoo Map, which is already pretty wacky.
Yeah.
From Holy Invasion of Privacy, Badman. What did I do to deserve this, my lord? And that is the entire name. And this one came out on the PSP, and it's on the PS3 too, I think. And this is composed by Takeshi Hama. So let's give it a listen. Alright, that was Mawoo Map from Holy Invasion of Privacy, Badman. What did I do to deserve this, my lord? Came out on the PSP and composed by Takeshi Hama. I wanted to start the show off with this because it's just so playful.
Yeah.
And it just feels like, toys marching down like a hill or something with those little monkeys with like clapping cymbals and stuff. What'd you think of it?
It reminded me of something, and I still can't quite figure out what it is. Something in my brain is saying Super Mario RPG, the 7 stars on the SNES, but I couldn't even tell you what part of the game that I'm being reminded of. But there's just something about it. It has almost, for one, it has sort of a MIDI quality to me, although I don't think it is. There's a few things in there that tell me that it may not be MIDI, but based on beat coming from the PSP, I'm not sure what they what they were doing for their sound composition at that point. But yeah, no, it sounds like really playful, really fun. It sounds like something you'd hear almost in like a medieval nursery. Yeah,
there's like tin whistles and a lot of those like kind of medieval instruments with a bit more of like a modern arrangement, though. It feels kind of video gamey with those kind of call and responses with the whistle, and then that, I think it's like an accordion or a squeeze box or something that kind of comes in response to that that tin whistle. It's just a lot of fun. I thought of like Loco Roco, some Katamari. Katamari's a little more glitchy and techno, but it has that same kind of playful, major key feel to it. And this game is really weird. Like the title Holy Invasion of Privacy, Batman. What did I do to deserve this, my lord? And I promise that's the last time I'm going to say it. It's you play as a bad guy. So you are trying to protect Badman, who is your lord. And you are setting traps and putting monsters in this dungeon. And at the end of your kind of build phase, a hero comes in to try to smite your Lord Badman. And so you have to basically build this dungeon in a way that is going to kill the hero before he can get to your boss.
Yeah.
And if he does end up getting to the end, then he kidnaps Badman and he tries to leave, and then you have an opportunity to build more traps and build more monsters to try to kill him on the way out. So, of course, it starts pretty easy, and you've got a kind of a weak hero, but as it goes, the heroes get stronger and stronger, so you've got to be more clever with how you set up traps and make sure that, you're making it as difficult as possible for this guy to come and take your lord. So it's kind of tower defense, it's kind of dungeon building, it's a lot of fun. It's got kind of fun pixelated graphics, kind of Minecraft style, like Terranigma, I think, was that like 2D Minecraft game?
Yeah.
Terraria, not Terranigma, Terraria.
Oh, yeah, Terranigma was a SNES game.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun to play. I haven't played too much of it, but from what I saw of it, I thought it was really cool. And the title is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
From what I understand, they ended up having to remove the Holy Invasion of Privacy Badman part of it when they re-released it on the PSN. Because it was too close to like the Batman phrase.
Yeah, the Robin phrases.
Yeah, the Japanese version was just called "What Did I Do to Deserve This, My Lord?" So I think that's what they kind of just ended up going with when they put it out for the re-release. So fun game, worth checking out. Takeshi Hama, he's actually more of a Nintendo guy. He worked on Zelda Skyward Sword and Mario 3D Land, but he's more of a freelancer. So he wasn't really employed by Nintendo to do that stuff. He's just kind of... He bounces around a lot. And there's also like a 3D sequel to Holy Invasion of Privacy, which he worked on as well. So, he's got some fun kind of Nintendo-y tunes. I think this kind of sounds like it would be right at home in like one of those kind of Nintendo creative style games.
Yeah, sort of like background music or something.
Yeah, like Mario Paint or something like that. Yep. So, a lot of fun, worth a shot. Getting on with our next title, and this is one that Mike and I have made fun of on Pixel Tunes a lot. This is Score Attack, otherwise known as the Allied Forces, from Summer Carnival 92 Alzadik. This one came out on the TurboGrafx and PC Engine CD in 1992 and is composed by Daisuke Morishima. All right, that was Score Attack, the Allied Forces from Summer Carnival 92 Alzadik, which came out on the PC Engine CD and TurboGrafx CD in 1992, composed by Daisuke Morishima. And Justin, I'll give you one guess as to why we picked this title for the show.
Because you really like Score Attacks.
I really like carnivals, actually.
So close.
So the story behind this, we did I think it was a shoot 'em up episode on Pixel Tunes a long time ago, and there's another game called Summer Carnival 92 Rekka. And I think later on we played a track from Air Zonka, like 10 or 12 episodes later than that. And Daisuke Morishima did the soundtrack to Air Zonka. It's an amazing soundtrack. We were looking up the games that he had done in the past. And so I was calling the game names out. And I go, Summer Carnival 92, and Mike goes, Rekka. And I go, Alzadik. And he goes, what? So that's actually the name, Alzadick. I have no idea why they chose that name. I mean, it must have been some sort of Japanese, or just didn't translate to English.
Well, I mean, you can't just have Sumza. It's got to be Alza.
It's got to be Alzadik. Alzadik or Nozadik.
Exactly.
It's just a ridiculous name for a shoot 'em up that has nothing to do with phallic objects whatsoever. Right. And I've always been really interested in this whole Summer Carnival 92. So it's in a line of games called caravan style games. Okay. And what they are, they're very simple titles. Well, I'll say short titles rather than simple, because actually they're pretty technologically and technically cool looking. Like they've got really fast moving graphics, really nice detailed sprites. But you only get to play for about 5 minutes. And the Summer Carnival was a contest to see who can get the highest score in 5 minutes of play. And so they would basically give out these discs for free, or as a bonus if you buy another game. I think they were from Naxat Soft, I'm pretty sure. So you would get this game, and you'd be able to take a screenshot of your score at the end of the 5 minutes worth of play, and then you would get like golden cartridges, or a cash prize, or whoever got the highest score after the 5 minutes. So it's pretty cool. That's whenever you see like a Summer Carnival or a Caravan edition at the end of a game's title, that's usually what it is. It's a game that's been modified to be kind of like the Nintendo World Championship cartridges.
Right,
you get a limited amount of time to get the most score possible. So
that's really cool. Actually, that's a really fun idea. I wish I had. I wish that had been a thing around here.
That would have been really cool. Yeah. These were Japanese only, unfortunately. Yeah. So, but what did you think of the song itself?
The song was a lot of fun. You brought up the galloping bass as we were listening to it, and the galloping bass always makes it feel like you're blasting off somewhere. I mentioned the sound like a shmup, because it is.
Definitely.
The first thing that came to my mind, though, with that really jazzy saxophone was some 80s stuff, particularly like Careless Whisper.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It says 80s written all over it. And so Daisuke Morishima has appeared on this show once before in episode 2. When we did shoot 'em ups with Trevin Hughes, we played Brainstown from Air Zonk on the TurboGrafx, and that also was a very 80s, very gallopy bass kind of song. It's one of my favorite TurboGrafx soundtracks of all time. So I was really excited when I found out he had composed the music to this, and also that it was Redbook Audio on CD. Oh, wow. So we get to hear kind of his take on 80s music with real, sampled instruments instead of just the chip tunes on the TurboGrafx.
Right.
I kind of prefer the TurboGrafx chip tunes from him a little more, because they're a little more harsh and gritty, which is what I like in music.
Yeah.
This is very smooth and like we said, very MTV 80s. Yeah. It's really cool. It's really smooth. A lot of the tracks on this soundtrack, it's kind of short because there's only 2 levels in this game.
Yeah.
But sound very much like this. So it's worth checking out the soundtrack. Try to collect all the dick that you can. And that is all I have to say about that. So moving from Alzadik to something other anatomically correct, we're going to be listening next to rounds 5 and 8, Feudal Japan, from a game called Booby Kids. And this came out on the Famicom in 1987, and this was composed by Kenji Yoshida. We'll be right back. And we're back. That was rounds 5 and 8, Feudal Japan from Booby Kids for the Famicom, which came out in 1987. It's really hard to say that without laughing. That was composed by Kenji Yoshida. So we went right from Alta Deck to Booby Kids.
Yep. I mean, makes sense.
Coincidentally, I actually picked all of these. The order we're listening to these tracks is in the order that they were kind of suggested and how I discovered them. So I just kind of built this list and felt that the order kind of really worked pretty well for a show. So, Booby Kids. So the story behind this one and why I picked it, aside from it being a really cool tune, is that when I used to work at Funko Land back when I was like 16, so we're talking like almost 20 years ago, we used to get old Nintendo units in from the warehouse that we would sell. We would basically take in customers' Nintendos, we would ship them off, and they would refurbish them, and then they would ship them back to the store, and they would sell them. So one day, in came this NES, and we opened it up, because we always test them when they come in just to make sure. Opened it up, and there was this yellow Famicom-looking cartridge, and it was one of those, like, 30-in-1 games from China. And this was before I even knew what they were, because nowadays you can kind of find those ROMs, and you can find them on Amazon. People are still making them. But they were kind of popular in China at the time. One of them just happened to be in this NES, along with this Honeybee Famicom to NES adapter, which are really valuable.
Yeah.
I had no idea what it was at the time, but my boss was there, and he's like, well, we can't sell this. Do you want it? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll check it out. So I brought it home, plugged it in, and, up comes this menu of like 15 different versions of Super Mario Brothers and like Contra with a different title screen and all this, crazy bootleg stuff. But this was the track that played during that menu. So this was kind of like the theme song to that multi-game cartridge. And I had no idea what it was from. So it wasn't until like maybe 15 years later when, NSF files and stuff started coming out on the web that I just coincidentally, I think I was making a soundtrack for one of the people that, we used to request stuff on my forum thread on Final Fantasy Shrine forums. He's like, can you do Booby Kids? And I was like, this is a weird sounding game, but sure. I started listening to the soundtrack and I immediately recognized this tune. I was like, oh my God, now I know where it came from. So I naturally researched the game and, figured it out. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, I had been listening to Booby Kids all this time and didn't even realize.
Such a shame.
Yeah, so that's the kind of coincidental story behind this one. And also, it's got a ridiculous name. Like,
yeah.
What kind of game would you think this game would be based on the name?
I mean, that's hard because my mind goes to all different places.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you take the other connotations away from it, I would imagine that it's about a kid who makes a lot of mistakes and gets into like weird and unfortunate situations.
Okay, I didn't think about that. Yeah, that's like a booby being like kind of a fool or a clumsy kid. Interesting. So the actual, it's a little more literal than that. So the game is a couple of kids, a boy and a girl, and they're being chased through time by these villains, and they have to set booby traps for them.
Oh.
So actually, it's kind of a cool parallel to the Holy Invasion of Privacy, because you're setting booby traps for people too. Yeah. So I didn't even realize I had done that for this show. But so they're like booby trap kids.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the original title of the game when it was released in the arcade was called Kid no Hore Hore Daisukyusen, which was later retitled to Booby Kids for the Famicom. But yeah, so it's really actually kind of a fun game because you're kind of moving around this overhead map and you got to kind of learn these enemies' patterns and then set up traps for them so that when they move over these particular tiles on the floor, they'll get killed. So
sort of like a tower defense.
Yeah, it's kind of like puzzle versus action kind of a game. It's a lot of fun. I really like this tune because there was like this era of NES music where Japanese composers just seem to get really obsessed with like 50s rock and mixing it with Japanese music. And for some reason it works really, really well. And this is a really good blend of the two.
I agree. This actually, right off the bat, I got a vibe from a game that I sort of love. It's not the greatest game. It's called Kung Fu Heroes. I had it on the NES. It was one of the games that I had growing up as a kid. I forget what the original name was, but not everybody knows it as Kung Fu Heroes. It was an arcade game that was ported to the NES, and the music, like the sound font and everything, sounds very much like the opening of this.
Okay.
As it goes on, it kind of gets more into like that, like 50s rock type stuff, and it sort of pulls away from that. But I was kind of amazed because as I heard it, I was like, oh, clearly that's not the same game, but it sounds like that music. And most of the music in that game, when it opens up, it actually has more of a sort of a Chinese sound. Like there's, I think either the first level or the title screen starts out with that da 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 da,
like the very traditional Orientals. Yeah. Do you know who published that game by any chance, or who developed it?
I was trying to look it up while we were listening, but I couldn't get to what I was trying to get to.
Yeah, this was made by Nichibutsu, who is kind of like an underrated developer. They have a lot of really fantastic titles out, and there are a lot of, at least on the web, I'm friends with a lot of people who are really into games that Nichibutsu has released. They've done stuff like Crazy Climber 2, Terra Cresta, all those games
right.
that Kenji Yoshida worked on. They do a lot of like vertical shooters. There's a lot of Mahjong games out by them as well. So a lot of the stuff never really crossed over the pond just for cultural reasons, like Booby Kids did, but then a lot of stuff did come over, like F1 Circus on the Super Famicom, which was kind of like use the Mode 7 like F-Zero. And there were 2 other F1 Circus games that never made it out into the US, but they have like huge like role-playing stories mixed with F-Zero type racing, and they're really cool. Yeah. Fan translations just got released for both of those actually a couple weeks ago, so you can patch the SNES ROMs and play them on,
that's really
on your
cool.
emulator. Yeah, they're pretty cool and definitely worth checking out. And really good music too. Nichibutsu had some good composers under their wing.
Yeah. I mean, if Kung Fu Heroes was actually done by them, then the music in that game was fantastic.
Yeah, we'll have to look that up and figure that out. So. Let's move on from Dick and Booby Kids and move on to Hot Dogs. So this is stage 1 from Hot Dog Storm. This was requested by a whole bunch of people. I think Aaron Hickman, Dan Basiglia, and Scott Bodwin all mentioned Hot Dog Storm immediately when I asked for bizarrely named games, with good reason. This was composed by Fumito Tamayama, Shigenori Masuko, and Yoko Kawashima. This came out in the arcade in 1996. Let's give it a whirl. All right, that was stage 1 from Hot Dog Storm. That came out in the arcade in 1996, composed by Fumito Tamayama, Shigenori Masuko, and Yoko Kawashima. Great song.
Definitely.
Cool, very smooth sounding shoot 'em up music. It's like its own genre at this point.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
yeah.
What did you think of it?
I really, really enjoyed a few key parts of this. For one, I loved the punch of the percussion. It was really punchy and it felt very clean. But I was more drawn to the bass line than anything else. When we listened to 2 loops, and the second loop, I actually heard the actual melody. But the first time around, all I could focus on was the da 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 da. It was very driving, and really kind of grabbed me.
It seemed to take a lot of inspiration from like Van Halen and a lot of those bands of the early '80s, especially that beginning dun. Dun, dun. Like,
yes.
You know, you definitely hear that from like, you know, Warrant and all those bands that were popular back then. It's got that kind of hook that kind of perks your ears up to listen to the rest of the song.
Yeah.
And great melody, you know, a lot of different instrumental parts. It's using a very simple, I think it's a YM2203 in the arcade game, which is a very simple YM FM chip. And they do make some pretty good instruments with it, with its limited capabilities. So they had some good talent with the FM chip for this one. And the game itself, I mean, the hot dog thing, So the title screen, it says Hot Dog Storm in huge letters, like kind of like Darius-style font. Underneath it, there's an image of a hot dog with like lots of toppings of lettuce and ketchup on it and whatever. And underneath it, it says the first Supersonics. I have no idea why. But then the rest of the game is like this cyber overhead vertical shooter that has nothing to do with food, nothing to do with hot. Like, there's no reason.
Such a missed opportunity.
I know. The only theory that I have as to why this might be called Hot Dog Storm is because, ships battling in the air used to be called dogfighting.
Oh, okay.
And maybe, if you were like one of the top like dog fighters, you might be a hot dog.
Oh.
And so then you're shooting a lot of bullets at these guys, so it's a storm.
Yeah,
maybe sometimes the Japanese kind of like have these very vague ideas that they try to convert into English words. And so I think that might be where they were going with this. I could be totally wrong, but that's like my headcanon for why it's called this.
I mean, that's fair. I saw the name of the game, and all I could think of was like a hurricane of hot dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Just like raining wieners. Falling on the booby kids as they're trying to get away from all the dicks. But really, really fun game. This is actually a very high quality game. Definitely worth checking out. It's made by a company called Marble, who I don't even know if they made any other video games.
Really?
And a lot of these composers I haven't heard much from otherwise either. So, but worth checking out. You can find it on MAME. It's a really, really rare arcade game. I don't know if it ever made it out in the US at all, but you can definitely play it on MAME and, probably any other arcade emulators that are out there. It's definitely worth a shot.
Yeah, I mean, if the rest of the soundtrack is like that song, then I mean, it sounds like it's got a pretty good feel to it.
Yeah,
and it didn't look like a bad game. So
no, it definitely enhances the gameplay when you're playing through it. It's kind of a like quote unquote generic kind of shooter. There's nothing that really makes it stand out, but it's well made. So it's fun to throw some quarters into and play now and again.
Fair enough.
All right, so finally moving away from anatomy. But we're going in a different direction here entirely. This is a little short ditty, but I actually really enjoy it. This is the title theme from How to Be a Complete Bastard, and this came out on the Commodore 64 in 1987. So we're going to hear some SID music here. Unfortunately, we are unaware of the composer of this game. There's no credits listed, and I don't blame them very much for that either. So let's give it a listen to the title theme from How to Be a Complete Bastard. That was the title theme from How to Be a Complete Bastard. That came out on the Commodore 64, ZX Spectrum, a bunch of other computer systems in 1987. This was the Commodore 64 version of that song, and this was composed by Mr. or Mrs. Unknown. So very simple, short little tune.
Yeah.
I liked it because I like how all three of the SID voices do completely different things, but all kind of, they almost feel like they interconnect like a puzzle piece.
It doesn't feel disjointed.
Yeah, you can listen to each individual part and hear a different song, but if you try to listen to them all at once, they sound like a complete composition. It's really interesting.
No, it works out really well, and I mean, for the most part, my ear was more drawn to the do 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 do
right.
But even with the other pieces behind it, like each voice like enhances the other voices, which is great because, like you said, they're all doing completely different things, and in most cases that wouldn't really sound that great. But Mr. or Mrs. Unknown found a way to make them like just play off of each other really well.
Yeah. I mean, I have a sneaking suspicion that whoever composed this piece, given how short it was probably the person that programmed the game, or worked on it. Like, wasn't an actual real composer. Many times that would happen, is they would just want to throw in a short 30-second kind of a theme song if they didn't have like Rob Hubbard or somebody really talented to work on the music for them for the game. But this game is how do I explain this game? So there was a book that came out called How to Be a Complete Bastard, and it was one of those comedy books that came out in England. Basically, kind of like like it says on the tin, telling you how to be a complete bastard and be a jerk and how to get nobody to like you. So this game was kind of like a physical demonstration of that. So you're this idiot who happens upon or gets invited to this really posh party in this multi-level house, and your job is to piss off everybody in the house through one way or another. So you have all these meters around the screen, and it's like how drunk you are, how much you have to pee, how much you have to poop, and I think how much you have to throw up or something. It's like all these really gross kind of meters, and basically each person will be grossed out by a particular action. So you can get really drunk and try to grope this one woman, or I think there's a part of the game where you can poop in a vase or something, really gross stuff.
Wow.
So each person is kind of this own little puzzle where you have to take the clues from the room and try to figure out the best way to get them really mad at you.
Oh, that's...
And you win the game when you've officially ticked off, or have been a complete bastard, not just a partial bastard. Being a complete bastard is pissing off everybody in the entire house.
That's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
I get it, but wow, to turn that into a game, I feel like that takes more thought than it should have been worth.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't exactly the most easy game to get the hang of. I tried it out a little bit in an emulator, but then ended up watching a little bit of a walkthrough on YouTube or somebody who knew what they were doing. But yeah, it's just, and of course it's very simple 8-bit graphics, so you're not really seeing anything gory or extremely graphic or anything like that. But it just seems like good fun, and it's very British humor.
Oh yeah,
it's
Monty Python sort of.
Right, that whole concept of really highfalutin, bougie mansion party goers, and this one guy that just kind of stumbles in and
wrecks everything.
Wrecks the entire place. Yeah. But the title definitely got me interested. I was like, what kind of game can How to Be a Complete Bastard be? So I was not surprised at all.
That's really silly. I like it.
It wasn't another vertical shooter. Yeah. All right, are you ready for the next one?
Let's do it.
All right, next one is The Final Battle, and this is from a game called ZHP Unlosing Ranger versus Dark Death Evil Man. Wow. This came out on the PSP and the Sony Vita in 2010, and this was composed by the Base Escape team.
Oh, I know them.
Yeah, this is Yoshimi Kudo, Noriyuki Kamikura, Azusa Shiba, Matsuhiro Kaneda, Kimihiro Abe, Masaharu Iwata, and Manabu Namiki. We'll be right back. All right, that was the final battle from ZHP Unlosing Ranger versus Dark Death Evilman. That came out on the PSP and the Vita in 2010, composed by the Base Escape team, Yoshi Mikudo, Noriyuki Kamikura, Azusa Shiba, Matsuhiro Kaneda, Kimihiro Abe, Masaharu Iwata, and Manabu Namiki. Don't make me say that again, please. Thank you.
Wow, that was a mouthful.
Fantastic track. This is a really cool game with a really cool soundtrack. Obviously, the title is what kind of drew me in. But what did you think of the song before we start talking about the game?
The song, so I mean, I've heard some stuff by Best Escape before, and I have to say, like, I'm not disappointed. I really like what they've done. One of the songs that we played in a recent episode of XVGM was funny because Mike was like, "Oh, you know, it makes me think of like elephants and stuff." He made it sound like the song made him think of things that weren't appropriate, and then when I explained sort of where it came from, he was like, "Oh, I guess that does work." So they're really good at getting like the feel that they're going for,
right?
And in this one, like, it definitely felt like a final battle. Like the orchestral hits were really powerful, and just like the orchestration itself was like really strong. There's a few parts where I was just like sort of like almost blown back.
Yeah. The orchestra hits are absolutely like putting Konami to shame.
Yeah.
Kind of orchestra hits. And it's a really good combination of very sweeping orchestral moments with this kind of techno dance house beat in the background. And they blend the two.
Was awesome. Yeah.
They blend the two very, very well. This is the theme that plays in the second to last boss battle. So this is not the final form. The final form comes after this. And the final form track is like over the top intense. It's insane, and it didn't really fit with the rest of the music I was playing in the show. But this was really good. The rest of the soundtrack is much more orchestral sounding, maybe some like thriller kind of stuff, but a lot of it's kind of like more sweet and a little more calm. This game is kind of like a side-scrolling RPG with turn-based battles, but it's much more focused on story. There's like fully voiced voice acting and lots of characters with a lot of dialogue. But very Japanese, as you can tell from the title, Unlosing Ranger versus Dark Death Evilman. It's got some Sentai elements to it.
I feel like that title gives a little bit away, because if they're the Unlosing Rangers, I mean, you know they're going to win.
That's true, actually. Oh man, they totally dropped the ball on that one. But Dark Death Evilman, do you think he's evil with a name like that?
He might just be misunderstood.
They should have made it like opposites, like bright life good guy versus Dark Death Evilman.
What's the ZHP?
It's the initials of the very long and hard to pronounce Japanese title of the game. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I don't even remember what it was at this point, but they just call it ZHP without ever telling you what ZHP means in the English translation of the game. So I think they just used it to make the title a little more complicated sounding. But yeah, Base Escape is Hitoshi Sakamoto's company. It's like Midnight Resistance. He did the arrangement for that. So that title, Flood of Power, is like one of Mike's favorite FM songs of all time. He was the arranger for that. He's done a lot of really good music over the years.
Vagrant Story, right?
He did. Yep. So he started off doing a lot of like dancey, more techno style music, and then as he went on, got a little more into the orchestral compositions. And now, this song is kind of like a cross between the two of them.
Yeah,
but he has a whole team of composers, and they do music for a ton of different games. Like you said, he did the music for Soul Calibur Legends, and if you see Base Escape name on the box of a game, you're going to get a good soundtrack, even if the game is.
I was just going to say, even if the game isn't that great, the soundtrack's going to be killer.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's move on to our next track of the day. This one is called Führer, spelled incorrectly as Feurer. This is the Boss 1 / demo track from Act Fancer Cybernetic Hyperweapon. Speaking of complicated Japanese names, this came out in the arcade in 1989 and was composed by Azusa Hara, Hiroaki Yoshida, Tatsuya Kiyuchi, Shuji Segawa, Koma, and Morikin. Alrighty, that was Führer, the Boss 1/demo from Act Fancer Cybernetic Hyperweapon. Came out in the arcade in 1989, composed by Azusahara, Hiroaki Yoshida, Tatsuya Kiyuchi, Shuji Sagawa, Koma, and Moriken. Act Fancer Cybernetic Hyperweapon. I don't know, sounds like something out of Neon Genesis Evangelion or something like that.
It definitely sounds like a long translation of something from an old anime.
Yeah. But cybernetic, the tick at the end of cybernetic is CK.
Yep.
There's a hyphen between act and fancer. Fancer, like the Japanese titles seem to have fancer in the title a lot, or like
Really?
there's another game out there called I don't remember what it was. Maybe I'm thinking of Grey Lancer or Glay Lancer.
Oh, Glay Lancer.
Yeah. It sounds kind of similar to that. Yeah, so very, very strange name. Really kind of made me want to take a look at what the game was all about. It's like a side-scrolling run and gun, but really slow-paced.
Yeah.
With some like very Konami-style, like Gradius Contra-style bosses, where it's like very like gross tendrils everywhere and organics mixed with like cybernetics and stuff. Seemed pretty interesting.
Yeah, it looked kind of neat. A little bit of gameplay that we watched made it look like something that I would probably have played in the SNES arcade era of my life.
Yeah. It looks more like a 16-bit like console style run and gun kind of game than an arcade game. It seemed very slow paced for an arcade game.
Yeah, the enemies also were fairly interesting. I mean, very like insect, kind of gross, organic like.
Yeah, but all the while you're like walking past these very plain kind of like city environments.
Yeah, like a destroyed city in the back.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I don't know, the music is pretty good. I like the kind of dynamic, especially that da-da, da-da,
Yes.
ba-dum. It had very kind of a dark minor key, felt very foreboding. This is the song that plays in the first boss, but also like the storyline with like the aliens attacking the planet.
Oh yeah, the quote-unquote demo when they're like showing you the stuff that's going on before you actually get to play.
Exactly, which is kind of why it has that very foreboding kind of a theme to it. But it was fun. Again, a very kind of basic FM chip that they used, so you're not going to hear any really, wowing instruments or anything like that. But these composers were probably more commonly known, at least if you're a Legacy Music Hour listener, they call them the Bad Dudes. These are the Data East composers. Most of them were members of Gamadelic, who was Data East's in-house band, kind of like Suntada or the Konami Kukeiha Club. They would do like live shows and play Data East soundtracks and release arranged CDs and stuff. So these are a lot of the composers that are behind a lot of that music. So kind of worth checking out. Again, this is a game that you can find in MAME. You probably won't find an arcade cabinet anywhere near your house at any time. So check it out. It seems kind of fun if you like a slower paced side-scrolling run and gun kind of game. This might be up your alley.
Actually, my favorite.
Well, there you go. Go check it out. All right, moving on from bizarrely titled Japanese games and back to literal toilet humor. We're going to play Stage 4 Egypt, and this is from a game called Toilet Kids. Yeah, literally Toilet Kids. This came out on the PC Engine in 1992 and was composed by Tease Music. right, that was Stage 4 Egypt from Toilet Kids. Came out on the PC Engine in 1992, composed by T's Music. Pardon the Freudian slip there. And that was suggested to me by Kung Fu Carlito. So yeah, thanks Carlos for this one. Genuinely.
This was fun. I mean, the song itself did not really yell anything, either Egypt or toilets to me.
Yeah.
There's a few pieces that get a sort of aharmonic that I could see as like, oh, this is like an Egyptian music reference. But overall, the track itself was very kind of bouncy and upbeat and did not match what I expected the gameplay to be.
Yeah, so the gameplay is this vertical shooter, again, but it has more of like a Stinger or Xevious feel where you are able to shoot forward, but also to drop bombs. There's a little reticle, a couple inches above your ship, or the toilet that you fly on, and you can drop bombs at enemies on the ground or shoot enemies in the air. So the story is there's a boy, brother, and sister who fall into their toilet and find themselves in this magical world of poo.
Yep.
And they have to ride on flying toilets and shoot down poop enemies, hippopotami that shoot poop out of their mouths, birds that shoot poop at you out of their butts, islands made of poop. Everything's just basically poop.
Spiders with giant butts.
Yep. It's extremely scatological, and it's a lot of fun. The game's actually really good. Never came out in the US for obvious reasons, but it's a cool little game to play. Toilet Kids again. Obviously, I definitely need to check it out because I could not imagine what kind of game Toilet Kids would be.
My first inkling was, or my first thought was something closer to like Garbage Pail Kids or something like that. I thought maybe it was like a platformer or something. I was not prepared for what I saw.
Yeah, I was thinking more like maybe a side-scrolling shooter that was kind of like gross out, like Booger Man or something like that. Mixed with like Earthworm Jim or that kind of aesthetic. It's definitely not as gross looking. Like it's all very cartoony.
Oh yeah,
the graphics are very clean. Yeah. So you don't get a lot of that really grossed out humor. It's more just like, haha, look, there's poop. Little spirals of brown. Very, very clean for the kind of content that it's throwing at you, literally.
That's fair.
We're moving on to our last couple tracks of the show. We're going to have two tracks from this one. One is going to be the outro, but this is a game called Van Slug X Mission, which I had to check out because I had no idea what kind of game it was going to be. This came out on the PC in 1995 from a Korean developer, and this is Baby Mini, otherwise known as the credits theme, composed by Green and Nam Woo Lee and arranged by Dracula.
Nice.
I guess he's got a day job. So let's take a listen to Baby Mini from Van Slug X Mission. All right, that was Baby Mini, the credits theme from Van Slug X Mission. Came out on the PC in 1995, composed by Green and Nam Woo Lee, and arranged by Dracula.
Really glad that he's found work in this day and age.
You know, he's got some good arranging skills, too.
I agree.
He tends to really enjoy 80s music.
Yeah, clearly. It's really, really heavy on like the synth wave, synth pop. When it opened, I actually thought it was going to be more of like a techno-y track, just with like some of the older, like pre-techno that was not happy hardcore. That's totally the wrong word, but like just like the more upbeat, bright stuff.
Right.
And then it went into this awesome synth thing, and I was sort of taken by surprise. The melody also. Every time I've listened to this a couple times before I came over to record, and every time I hear the melody, the first thing I think of is the ship theme from the first Final Fantasy.
Okay, yeah.
And then it just like, it almost starts that way and then it goes off in a different direction.
Yeah. I was reminded of, I might just talked about it at the beginning of the show, but that game Elemental Master has this very 80s kind of rock anthem FM soundtrack, and this kind of like really fit right in with that music as well.
Yeah.
So the game it's basically a Korean ripoff of Metal Slug. In a sense, I guess. It doesn't really rip it off in the sense that it's like Metal Slug is known for its really cool like animation and smooth frame rate, and this has none of that at all.
No.
It is a rip off in the sense that it is a side-scrolling like run and gun kind of a game.
Yeah, more like walk and gun.
Yeah, creep forward and shoot at like 15 frames per second or something. The frame rate is so slow that when you shoot your bullets, they kind of disappear and show up like on the other side of the screen.
I also thought it was really cool that they were able to get Luigi to star in this game. Yeah,
a little dude with the green hat and a green jumper. He's just running around with this gun shooting bullets that are bigger than the gun. And organic enemies make like shattering sounds when they die. There's like random sound effects thrown in.
Or like this little slime thing that makes a sound.
Yeah. It was developed by a company from Korea called Soft Action, which is kind of what this is. It's not hardcore action at all. But it was actually published by Samsung, which is really interesting. They went from really, really poor clone DOS games to like world-class smartphones and refrigerators and stuff. But yeah, I mean, really, really kind of interesting game. Something I never would have discovered if I hadn't kind of been doing internet searches for games with bizarre names and stuff.
Right.
So I guess Van Slug is the name of the character that you're playing as. I guess his parents were really kind of sadomasochistic and wanted to name your kid Van Slug. And then X Mission is the mission that he's going on. So it sounds kind of very similar to Metal Slug X,
right?
You know, coincidentally. But it's got a cool story before and after you play the game. You just have to slog through this terrible game to see these cutscenes, which have decent animation and decent graphics.
Yeah.
But it's all in Korean, so
that's what I was going to say too. Like the gameplay itself didn't look that good, but all of the like the story sections, like I totally dig the art, the art style for it, and it didn't look that bad until we actually saw the gameplay.
Yeah, you can find it on abandonware sites for free, and it is DOS, so you can probably play it in DOSBox or any other kind of DOS emulator you have on your computer. So if you want to check it out, you can go ahead and do that. Don't say I didn't warn you, though. And the music is ad-lib, which if you are a fan of Impulse Project, if you listen to episode 35, we did a feature on the ad-lib sound card, which is it's an FM card, which is capable of some very interesting things. It's got a very different way of modulating the frequencies and all of the channels. They kind of do like half sawtooth and stuff that your standard FM chips don't really have the capability of doing. So this is why you hear some very interesting kind of instruments in these ad-lib songs that you wouldn't really hear coming out of a Genesis or like a Sharp X68000 or anything like that. So check it out. The soundtrack is on VGM Rips too, which is where I got it from. As obscure as this game is, somebody did find it and wanted to rip the music from it, so you can find it over there. And that's about it. There's going to be one more track from Van Slug X Mission, which we're going to play at the end of the show as an outro. That one is called F Beat, and it's a remake of a song from a game that Soft Action had done earlier, but they kind of beefed it up with the ad-lib chip. And Justin and I took a listen to, and it's very, very funky. Really reminds me of like Yuzo Koshiro. Yep. Cool bass line.
Yeah, no, it's super funky. I like what they do. There's like some really cool pitch bends that go on in there, and it's a really chill track. Like I'm gonna kick back with a mojito in that outro.
Yeah, good outro track. So stay tuned for that. There were a lot of other candidates that were recommended by people that I want to go through some of the more ridiculous ones that I either didn't have time to add or check out, or just, didn't really have music that I wanted to play in the show. The first one I had thought of when I started on this kind of bizarre name kick was this shoot 'em up for the Genesis called X-Dazzledly Ray. I have no idea where that name came from. That's the name of the ship that you're flying in this horizontal shoot 'em up. But I took a listen to the soundtrack, and it's not very good at all, so I didn't really want to listen to it. The Kingdom Hearts series, of course, you got to give them a shout out. Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days. Drop Dream Distance. There's a lot of
Drop Distance. Yep.
A lot of really ridiculous stuff. A lot of people recommended Infinite Undiscovery, which is I think it's a Square Enix RPG that came out recently. Tongue of the Fat Man. There's this Korean dictionary which came out for the DS, and it's called Touch Dick. Spelled D-I-C as short for dictionary. Yeah. So I think Alex Messenger was very interested in that one, and I tried to rip the music from it, but I couldn't, and it's not anywhere on the web. So my apologies to Alex for that. Astro Fang Super Machine. What are some other ones I have on this? I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. That's been a popular one. My Name is Uncle Groucho. You Win a Fat Cigar. I think that was a ZX Spectrum game. Battle of the Toothpaste Tubes. I think the Dyad came up with a lot of these. BC's Quest for Tires. Pud Pud and Weird World. Fat Worm Blows a Sparky. Big Thanks Super Kieran. Dream with Kieran 50 Years. I have no idea where a lot of these came from.
How do they come up with these names?
Eric the Unready. Slap Happy Rhythm Busters. I think that was a Purnell pick. Ninja Baseball Batman. Bionic Granny, which I was hoping was like an elderly version of Bionic Commando or something like that, but
that
was
been amazing.
Sorely disappointed. Nuts and Milk. Earth Joker UN Defense Force. PP and BBs. And Super Real Darwin. So those are some honorable mentions for maybe a sequel to the Games with Bizarre Names episode.
Oh my God.
If you guys liked it, if you have any more games out there that have really wacky names, take a look at our Facebook group. You can head over to facebook.com/group/the VG Embassy. Find the post where this show is located. Let us know what you think of the show. Let us know some other ridiculous titles that you'd like to share with us. I'd love to hear the music and check out games with wacky names. And you can also check out our website at thevgembassy.com. That'll link to our Patreon page, and that'll also link at the top to our Discord channel. Our Discord channel is always hopping with a whole bunch of fun people. A lot of people that I credited for the game names on this episode always hang out at our Discord. There's always something cool to talk about there. So that is about it. I also do want to thank our Patreon members at the Taurus level: Chris Murray, Cameron Childs, and Michael Bridgewater from the Forever Sound Version podcast. Our VG emissaries: Chris Myers, Donovan Orofino, John Jekyll, aka the Mixix Master, and Ben the Dyad Dishman. Our audio attaché members: Cameron Warma, Carlos, and Scott McElhone. And our VG ambassador, the patron saint of VGM podcasts, Alex the Messenger. And as always, a special shout out to Indira J for the art, and Trevin Hughes, aka Dread, for the podcast theme song. So, Justin, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I had a lot of fun. This was a blast.
Me too. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So where can we find your podcasts and other stuff you do on the internet?
So to start off, you can find XVGM Radio on our website, which is xvgmradio.com. We also have a Facebook group. It's facebook.com/groups/XVGM Radio. And we post on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle on both of those is at XVGM Radio.
Excellent. And I've been listening to you guys since day one, of course, since I know both of you. And
right.
I love video game music too. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, you guys kind of kept a Pixel Tunes Radio style style feel, but you're also making it your own. So it's really cool to hear a lot of the ideas that Mike had that he wanted to do on Pixel Tunes, but now he's doing with you, and it's very different than I would have done it. So it's really cool to see that kind of stuff. So definitely check it out. And of course, you can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Instagram at the VG Embassy, Twitter, the VG Embassy, or my own Twitter account at Ruiner9. And we'd love to hear from you guys. So please give us your feedback. And, you can suggest ideas for new episodes. If you feel like you'd like to be on a show or suggest a soundtrack for a blind listen, reach out. You can reach me at thevgembassy@gmail.com. And of course, I will read and respond every email that I get. All right, guys, so we are going to lead you out again with F-Beat Remake from Van Slug X Mission for the PC, and we will see you in 2 weeks with another sweet show. Again, Justin, thank you for hanging out with me today.
Thank you.
And we will see you guys later. Peace out.